remember White Castle. It is on the Strip. So
Isn't that where they invented the sliders?
yeah, I think that's on Fremont, right? Pat is near Fremont Experience, the Fremont Street.
I have to Google that. I don't even know
Yeah,
what
yeah.
that is. I'm like,
Anyway,
wait.
Okay,
anyways, let's
you know who
let's
knows a thing or two about high quality entertainment is both Senator Telo Taitague and Senator Therese Terlaje. We had the both of them on a couple months ago, and when it was the day after Chris's birthday, they were nice enough to serenade him. So good morning, senators.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you guys for waking up bright and early to join us on the link. I think I messaged Senator Therese that it's never too early to be informed. So thank you guys for coming on. And the reason why I asked you guys to come on was to talk about this Bill 430. It's like almost 30 pages long. My goodness. And it deals with, for people who aren't familiar, it would replace Guam's 30-year-old Medical Malpractice Mandatory Arbitration Act. We're nearing the end of the term for the 35th Guam legislature, and this bill is pretty significant. So I'm not even sure the likelihood of getting a public hearing on this bill, but the fact that you're introducing it and at least giving the public a heads up that this is coming down, probably in the next legislature. If we could just give an overview of Bill 340, Senator
Sure.
Trace.
Like you said, it's 30 pages long, but it's really half of that is a repeal of the existing statute. So the new bill is really quite simple, I think. And what it's trying to do is to replace that mandatory arbitration as a pre-trial, method with a new method of pre-trial. And all these pre-trial methods are trying to reduce frivolous lawsuits. So, that's still the goal. We want to reduce frivolous lawsuits against doctors. We'd rather have them, doing patient care than, having to defend themselves in frivolous lawsuits. However, we found that the mandatory arbitration, the way that it is, was really preventing a whole class of people from being able to avail itself of those services because of the cost. So we're looking for a lower cost pre-trial screening process. And so that's what we've set up here. By this bill, it would set up the pre-trial screening to be done by the one of the magistrate judges over at the Superior Court. And everything would be kept confidential, just like in the arbitration process right now. And that allows, them to bring in their experts. It allows them to talk to each other as well. And if they, want to seek settlement or whatever, kind of similar to the current arbitration process. And in the end, the magistrate judge, in lieu of that 3-panel mandatory arbitration panel, very costly panel, this our magistrate judge is going to make a determination preliminarily whether they met the standard or whether there was a standard of care that was not met, and whether that resulted in the injury to the person. So those things, and then having that early determination is going to help these parties to decide what to do next, whether to pursue a trial, whether to settle with each other, or whether it was frivolous and it's over. That's the goal.
And this bill, it isn't something that you just started working on. This is something that has been over a year in the making, or years even in the making.
Yes, we started. We had 3 informational briefings on arbitration, and it was, rightly so, a hugely, I would say, intense process. It was so intense. The hearings, we had patients and their families come in, and then we had doctors who, this is their livelihood, and they care for the people of Guam very much. And I recognize this, and so, they are asking us to not make it so that they cannot practice on Guam, and I do not want to do that. So, yeah, we did start this months and months ago. We've been working really very hard prior to the pandemic to get a bill out to address this, and unfortunately, I think things got
And
shifted.
you said, Senator, that the existing law, it's been on the books for 30 years. Is there a particular reason that now this is coming up? Was it about to lapse, or why is this now being brought up in the past few months or year?
No, I think it really was patient driven. It was those patients who were unable to avail themselves of that arbitration process. So we tried to look, how many people does this really affect? And I think even the doctors have recognized that patients who do not have, money are not able to avail at all. And it's not like a, so one of the questions that came up, Andy, was why don't lawyers just take on the case like a contingency? And because it's not going directly to trial, it's very different. You're going into arbitration and you do it 2 times. So there were very many reasons why lawyers could not just take that as contingency. We had to pay for experts. You have to pay for the arbitration panel, 3 people. You have to pay them. Sometimes they were bringing them over here, so their travel costs, all of it. Senator Tello, yes, she worked very hard on this bill too. I'm going to let her speak.
Thank you, Senator, and good morning. Hi, Andy. Good to see you.
Good morning.
It's the first
Hi, Senator.
interview I've had since you've been on. So
It's been a while, yeah.
I know. It's so good to see you too as well. And always, Sabrina, it's always a pleasure being here. And thank you for the opportunity to discuss this bill. And it was mentioned earlier, there were 3 public hearings on this, one in September 19th of 2019, one on October 3rd, and the other one was on November 7th. And each of these, Senator Terlaje had these public hearings and spread them out to allow, the patients, individuals who've gone through this, who've lost a loved one, or who felt they were wronged by some kind of medical malpractice. And then we had attorneys and doctors. And then I believe one of them was open to just the public, as free range to speak on it. But yeah, I think for me, it started probably in 2019, the story about David Lebowski's son that really brought this to my attention. And when I read this story, it was just so heart-wrenching and feeling his pain. So I decided to research it and looked into it. And I just couldn't believe it. This has been on the books for actually 28 years. And the unfairness between the individual complainant versus the doctor is just, there was no balance, especially for those who didn't have means. And if you watch some of those public hearings that I just mentioned and hear some of the stories, it's just heart-wrenching, and it's not only that, but also the doctors too as well. They've lost a patient, and for them it's very emotional. So you have a lot of emotions stirring up when someone has lost a loved one, and it becomes just very, you want to blame everybody, but the situation. And individuals just want an answer so that they could, continue, come to peace with what has happened. Mm-hmm. So I think this screening panel, pre-trial screening panel, is one of many ideas that are out there in the U.S. And I think Senator Terlaje and I have been going back and forth on this, talking to stakeholders and finding the best solution. And I think this one that we came out, though not perfect, is a start. Is a start. And starting this now is important. I mean, why wait until January, because it's a new term. Now is the time, I think, that we need to get everybody aware that this is something we need to look at and we need to address, especially with, and I'll let Senator Terlaje speak on this, but especially with a court order, not a court order, but an answer to the question on a district court. And I'll just leave it to that so she can explain the district court's scenario.
Well, just very briefly, so the court in the district court is actually looking at whether indigent, those without below a certain income level, whether they are able to avail themselves or not. And I guess she's asked the Supreme Court of Guam that if these people are not able to avail themselves of this mandatory arbitration, is it still applicable to them? right? Can we do that? And so, so we're waiting for a determination in the courts, of course. And this has been brought up several times, whether, it's just too costly. And so this, it's come up again and again over the years as to, the prohibition that really seems to be in place for some people to get justice for when there is a rightful claim. And so we're balancing rightful claims with frivolous claims, and we don't want, to encourage frivolous claims.
Do you have numbers or figures on the amount of money that has been wasted on the frivolous suits?
Well, not on frivolous suit, Andy, but I thought you were going to ask another question with regards to what the amounts of how much this would cost just going through a mandatory arbitration. You're looking at close to like $40,000, sometimes $50,000, depending, because a lot of these individuals on the panel, which is they usually use the AAA, which is also called the American Arbitration Association. And going through this, there's a fee, and then you have to pay for those who are panel members, and majority of them are coming from the States, airline tickets, hotel, all those expenses. And it comes up close to about $50,000 sometimes, and 30. And that's just a step. And by the way, Guam is the only law that has on their books that it's mandatory to go through arbitration. It's the only one. No state, no territory mandates this. So it's very unusual for something like this. And the question comes up every single time on its unconstitutionality. So you're looking about that amount of money just on the arbitration part. And then if the individual decides to go to court after the decision's made within the panel trial de novo, then they have to start all over again, with this trial de novo. And then again, the price goes up again. So a lot of attorneys, this is why Senator Terlaje mentioned, a lot of attorneys won't take cases because of the cost and knowing that the clients cannot afford it and just don't have it in their heart to charge them, knowing that this process is going to bankrupt them. And this is a time when an individual has suffered a loss. They're very vulnerable, and it's very difficult to go through. And I think the time frame too, in order for you to go through arbitration, I think Senator Terlaje has something on that she might introduce to us later on as far as a statute.
Yes, the period of time for which they can actually, file a claim is very short, surprisingly, for these types of cases, shorter than for regular torts, regular injuries. An injury caused by a medical provider or clinic is it's much shorter. So we might expand that. But we're putting this bill out now because like Senator Tello said, it's not a perfect bill. And there are so many different ways to do this in the different jurisdictions. And we're trying to get one that's good for Guam and that's good for these regions and for the way our community is here. Not most of them are in need, I would say. We have a high rate of poverty here on Guam. I hate to say it, but anyway, what we're trying to do is, if we can have a public hearing on this bill this term, we will. If not, what we're trying to do is to list it. I've written letters to the doctors, to the lawyers that have been involved in these cases, to the patients, of course, that have testified, and have invited them to please submit their recommendations on this bill and to continue that dialogue. And I'm very grateful because they were very willing to do that for the first 3 hearings that we had. And we received some very excellent input. For example, I want to share this story because it really moved me. And this is from a doctor, and they tell us that, so they have a certain specialty, for example, like maybe for adults, and yet on Guam, we don't have that same type of specialist for a child. And so these doctors go out of their comfort zone, or their specialty technically, to help treat this child when we really need to have a child specialist in that same field. And so, one of the doctors suggested that any changes to our arbitration statute is going to prevent them from doing work like that. And so that I'm very sensitive to. We do not want to do that. We know we are isolated out here and that we need all the doctors to continue to provide this extended care that, you know, is just a part of living on an isolated area geographically. But so I'm hoping that this, you know, that this strikes a balance in that way and allows them to continue to care for the patients as they are caring for them now. And that those, you know, when there is an error or where there is a rightful claim, that those claims can be sought by the patients, that they can find some kind of justice.
Senators, there's going to be a press conference in about 15 or so minutes over at Ukudu High School that we're going to go live to. But I did want to, did you get any phone calls or anything since the introduction of Bill 40, any sort of concerns or maybe even encouragement to move forward with this bill? Anyone from the medical community?
Well, some of them, of course, they have questions. So they wanted to know, does this apply? How does this apply to GMH? And, you know, we have a different statute altogether for claims against the government of Guam, and that's the Government Claims Act. And so those claims are handled differently when it's against the government of Guam. And I want to tell you, too, some of the other things that we've done to handle, you know, that rose from these hearings was that it's not just the arbitration statute. People are also looking for, you know, licensing boards to be very, very thorough and I guess open about their handling of complaints. So that was another thing. So we've also had oversight hearing of the medical licensing board, which I don't think has ever been done. And we want to make sure that they are getting to where they're supposed to be. And that is, they're supposed to have hearings. They're supposed to have hearing officers. They're supposed to have investigators. The money that they are taking in as licensing fees is supposed to go towards adjudication of those complaints. And that's another, you know, issue. I think they're intertwined, because if that board is strong and it's doing its review of the complaints, you know, then these people would, you know, be getting answers faster also. So they work hand in hand. But for government claims, yeah, that was one of the questions we did receive. Yes, we are getting, you know, questions and concerns, of course. And some encouragement from patients and their families. But yeah, I think so. I just want to know, claims against the hospital, the Guam Memorial, or any government facility are going to be handled under the Government Claims Act. And Senator Tello actually just passed a bill. We overrode a veto on a bill that increases the amount of claims that can be sought, because that statute as well was very old and had a cap, and we've increased the cap.
That was about 40 years, almost 40 years old on that cap. So, you know, a lot has changed since then. And as far as calls, I've actually reached out to a couple doctors myself throughout this, you know, research that I've done and talked with them. And one doctor actually thinks it's a win-win situation. Actually, two doctors that I spoke to. I don't want to mention their names because I know it's very contentious with them, but, you know, I think it's important what we're doing here provides that balance, you know, for both the public and those in the public sector. I mean, the health community. I did get a call, of course, from David Limbowski, you know, when it was introduced, and he just choking up almost in tears. You know, he's been an advocate for this type of change to the law for so many years, I think years now, we can say almost. And all the others who had situations such as his, he's represented them many times as a group. And I think they just want some kind of closure to all this, that even though they can't fix what happened to them, at least in the future, anybody else in the public that has to go through something like this, they can find some kind of way to have closure and go through something to find out, you know, the truth, to ease their soul and their heart from what happened, because it's very emotional.
Yeah, and actually, Mr. Lubofsky, he had emailed me, and he was really happy about the bill, and he thanked both you, Senator Therese Terlaje, and Senator Tello, for the introduction of it. Like I said earlier, we are going to be going to Ukudu High School live for that press conference on the first vaccination. But before we let you go, I wanted to talk about session tonight. Right, tonight is, you guys are going to be voting tonight, right, at 7:00. Is it? Okay. There were a lot of bills actually that were kind of added on to the session agenda, and tonight I think there's up almost 20 bills, 16, something like that, bills that are going up for a vote. Is it just that you guys going to go vote, or because there's still the items still pending discussion? So what?
We can never predict what exactly is going to happen when we go in there, but my guess is that we will vote because it is late. I hope they don't intend to go through with any more bills after that, but that's just, but of course it's always up to a vote. It's supposed to be up to a vote whether you continue or not. Speaker has a power to call a recess at any time.
Why is it at 7:00 at night though? Do you know? Like,
it's enough time to allow the compiler and not the compiler, but the clerks and those at the legislature to engross all the bills, to make sure that all the T's and I's are dotted and the correct amendments that were made. And it does take some time. We don't want to have them at the legislature burning the midnight oil, to finish this, and give them like a couple days to do it. There's about 14 bills that are up for voting, and I think Senator Terlaje is right. Sometimes we just don't know what's going on. Certain people in the legislature are not privy to what the game plan is, and it really throws us off because it doesn't allow us to prepare. And it's important that we know what bills are coming up in advance so that we can do our research and pull those bills up and refresh our memory on what we liked about it, what we didn't like about it. Mm-hmm. And then also to prepare amendments. Sometimes I think it's really so disheartening is the fact that the push. And it's not good practice to do that when you're rushed, especially laws, that we expect the people of Guam to follow.
Yeah.
Done correct.
The other consideration, I think, for voting tonight, I was surprised that we were going in this late also, but I think they're trying to get the vote done today, get the bills transmitted so that the 10 days that the governor has to act on them ends before the end of our term as well, in case somebody wants to override a veto or something like that. I think that's one of the considerations. Okay,
because I noticed there is quite a few controversial, I guess you could say, bills. We've got Bill 219, that's the renewable energy bill for GDOE, GCC, and UOG, the PUC, the CCU. They've come out against this particular bill.
The tobacco stamp tax is also a very contentious bill too. Well,
Bill 368. It just really, I didn't even know that it was on session agenda until I turned on, and I was like, whoa, what's going on, and what is Michelle doing on the committee of the whole? And I was kind of surprised when you guys were questioning, because initially I watched the first hearing, and DRT was opposed to this legislation, which
very much so.
Right, which basically would give enforcement, regulatory control to this outside vendor related to the cigarette enforcement of the cigarette tax stamp. And then she was on, and then all of a sudden it seemed as though she was supporting the bill. I mean, is that the kind of read that you guys got, and how surprised, I guess, were you? And I'm just trying to figure out what happened.
I'm going to say straight out, because Therese tends to be more subtle about it, but I'm going to be blunt and to the point. It's obvious that when you saw her speaking on it, first, she didn't even read the new legislation, number one. And then when we asked her questions, it's almost like, it's almost like she was coached to say that she did support it, and it was, you could read a person when you're watching this. So this is very contentious. Even my amendment to change from shall to may, to give them that option, I didn't even pass. So yeah, something was fishy there, very fishy.
Right. And it was when you look back at that public hearing, they were saying that it would take I think it was 300,000 or something like that if you were just to allow DRT to hire the personnel to enforce this particular law, which has been on the books, unfunded. And if you just gave them the 300,000, they could go and do the jobs. And they're almost close to finishing these rules and regulations that were provided with the guidance of the Attorney General, which, by the way, was not, I didn't see him in the committee of the whole providing any sort of testimony on this amended bill. I just, it's just frustrating to see our elected leaders doing this and adding it onto session agenda. And then to hear Reverend Tax all of a sudden, like you said, the bill was amended. She was provided it minutes before, and then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, let's do this. Senator Therese?
No, I mean, I think you got that correct, Sabrina. That's my analysis as well. And honestly, after the public hearing, I never imagined that bill would be put on the session agenda. So I was surprised as well when it was added. And then, when I read the amended bill, it's not that different. It does the same thing, same, it was the same concept. We were going to pay somebody $4 million to enforce our tobacco stamp laws instead of giving revenue and taxation $300,000 to hire a couple more people. We were going to pay $4 million. So the speaker has amended the bill during session to only allow them. And we don't really even know. Everybody's guessing how much this is going to end up, but now it looks like 1.8 million, almost $2 million to enforce these. And it's not like we're hiring somebody to, create a stamp for us. Now that I can see, you know what I mean? We're going to pay somebody to create that stamp and make sure that it can't be counterfeited, things like that. But to do the regulatory, the law, to enforce the laws, the tax laws, tobacco tax laws, no way. We're supposed to be getting closer and closer to this central warehouse concept that everybody says is more efficient, and just boosting revenue and taxation up. And I felt bad. I really feel bad because, yes, we should be angry that they haven't implemented this law. However, we should be very angry that if we're losing taxes, tobacco taxes. But I can't see any guarantee that what they are doing in this bill is going to increase the collection of tobacco taxes. That's not proven. Neither is that paying somebody $2 million is going to bring to us much more benefit than paying, giving Department of Revenue and Taxes. And they're ready to go, like you said, first week in January, ready to go. So I don't know.
Would this private vendor, whoever it's going to be, are they also going to be coming up with their own rules and regs, and then enforcing those rules and regs?
Authority. This bill puts in some rules, but then it says that they will come up with their own rules. This is the thing that Department of Revenue and Taxation opposed in the first public hearing, and they still during the hearing, Mickey, during our session. Mickey was still saying she doesn't know how that's going to work, that we have a private company preparing rules and regs as to how we're going to enforce tobacco tax.
Right. It sounds like this legislation was catered, or what is it, catered around a certain something, and even some of the amendments that were proffered to allow revenue tax just to add additional rules and regs was not even allowed. A lot of the amendments that we made were shut down. So we can already see, who those individual senators are who I wish they did. Sorry, I wish they did their homework. It would be, and it'd be so much easier for them to understand, But,
yeah, and I think for people who are just kind of waking up to what is this bill again? It's Bill 368, and it was introduced by Speaker Tina Munoz Barnes, following an audit, right, from the public auditor, which revealed that, we're losing $15 million a year because this bill was not enforced, and not public health, the Reverend Tax had been saying that, the reason why, we hadn't came up with the rules and regs for this bill is because we were never funded. And I thought what was interesting, Senator Terlaje, when you were on the floor and you basically said that something along the lines of, we know that Rev and Tax can do it. They created programs out of scratch during this pandemic.
They did. They did. And you have to admit, they were quick about it. I mean, some of the parts where we had to wait for the federal government, to consult was a little frustrating. We were waiting, day to day, but they did it, and they did it very efficiently. When they roll out their programs, they've been doing a great job. I really think so. And I think it was just a matter of putting their attention to this. Of course, they had their attention on other things, and once they put their attention to this, they're done with the legal review. They've got that AG to sign on now. In fact, they got the AG to sign on so much that, because the AG, they're working to make our program look like Hawaii's. So the AG has actually offered $60,000 to buy the stamp machine. And he said that would take care of the stamps, the labor, and the maintenance for, I think, 2 years. And that's how much they were ready to go.
So what did the AG say about this amended bill?
We haven't heard from them.
There was nothing, no testimony, nothing.
Well, like you heard that, even DRT was not aware of the amended bill until right before the session.
Right. Well, thank you, senators, for coming on. Good luck tonight.
Thank you. Thanks, Andy. You're doing a good job.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I like to
work from home.
I really like your backdrop there. Your space man.
As always, thank you for all the public service that you all are doing there at KUAM, Jason, everyone. And it's an exciting, what you're going to right now, the vaccine rollout.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
excited about that. So,
All right. Well, stay
Are you going
tuned.
to take it when you get the chance?
I think I'm way down on that list, that priority list when it comes to me. Yes, but I'm really hoping for our frontliners that, those who want it are going to take it and that they're going to be safe.
All right. Thank
Okay,
you again.
Just a quick heads up, everybody. Adriana Catero's been messaging me like on the side, and just so everybody knows, she has said the governor at 7:45, so in about 15 minutes from now, they're going to hold like a semi-press conference during which they will introduce the first person to receive the vaccine. That person will be vaccinated, and then precisely at 8, the clinic will be open. But it's a HIPAA thing, so they're going to tell everybody turn your cameras off, because at that point, the clinic will be open for the frontliners to receive it. So in about 15 minutes.
In about 15 minutes. Okay, we do have, though, Captain Ramos from the United States Marine Corps. He's in our Zoom room, and we're going to get to him after the break. But thanks, Senator Terlaje and Senator Taitague for waking up.
Thank you so much. Merry Christmas,
Merry
everybody.
Christmas.
Happy holidays.
Merry
Merry
Christmas.
Christmas.
Happy holidays.
We're going to go to a break while we wait for Captain Ramos to fix his shot. Stay tuned to the link. Up